You're about to hear a sentence that breaks reality. It's only 5 words long, but it contains an infinite loop, a trap, a mirror, looking into itself. Are you ready? Take a deep breath. This sentence is false. That's it. But once you hear it, you can't unhear it. Let's break it down. If the sentence is true, then what it says must be correct. But what does it say? It says it's false. So, if it's true, then it's false. But if it's false, then what it says isn't true. So it must be true. But then it's false. And if it's false, then it's true again. You see the problem. There's no escape. The logic eats itself. This is what we call a self-referential paradox. A sentence that talks about itself in a way that short-circuits logic. It creates a loop that can't be resolved. A glitch in the system. A linguistic black hole. The sentence doesn't contain truth. It contains contradiction. And the contradiction is alive. Once it enters your mind, you can't tell what's real anymore. These paradoxes don't just live in philosophy textbooks. They infect computers. They confuse AI. They challenge the foundations of mathematics and language. In the 20th century, a man named Kurt Gödel used a similar paradox to prove something terrifying, that no system of logic can ever prove all truths about itself. He encoded a version of the liar paradox into math, and math broke. It was like telling the universe, this equation is unprovable, and the universe had no choice but to agree. It was true, and it was unprovable. So what's the point? Why does this paradox matter? Because it reveals the edges of what we can know. It shows us that truth isn't always something we can pin down, that there are statements that exist, but defy definition. That sometimes reality loops back into itself, and logic cracks. Now imagine this. A person says, I always lie. Do you believe them? If they're telling the truth, then they must be lying. But if they're lying, then maybe they're telling the truth. It's not a riddle, it's a trap, and your brain is caught in it. There's a reason this paradox is ancient. It was first written down over 2,000 years ago by the philosopher Eubulides of Miletus. And it's still haunting us because no one has solved it. Every time we try, it slips through the cracks of our definitions. It's like a snake eating its own tail, a perfect loop of contradiction. The liar paradox is a mirror. And when you look into it, you don't just see logic. You see yourself, your mind, trying to make sense of meaning, trying to fix a loop that can't be fixed. And maybe that's the point. That not all questions are meant to be answered. Some are just meant to be experienced. So the next time someone tells you something simple, something short, something obvious, look a little deeper. Because hidden in 5 words could be a paradox that bends reality. This sentence is false, and it always will be. They say identity is simple, that something is what it is. But what if every piece of something was replaced? One part at a time, would it still be the same thing? That's the paradox. And it begins with a ship, a legendary ship, the Ship of Theseus. According to ancient stories, the ship belonged to Theseus, a Greek hero, and over time, its wooden planks began to rot. So one by one, the planks were replaced. First the mast, then the deck, then the hull, until none of the original pieces remained. But the ship still looked the same. It still sailed. It still carried the same name. So here's the question. Is it still the same ship? If every piece of it is new, is it still Theseus's ship? Or is it something else entirely? Now let's go deeper. Let's say someone saved all the original planks and rebuilt a second ship. using only the old parts. Now we have two ships, one rebuilt over time, one reassembled from the past. Which one is real? Which one is the true Ship of Theseus? This isn't just a question about boats. It's a question about you. Every 7 years, every cell in your body is replaced. You are biologically a different person than you were when you were a child. Your bones, your blood, your brain, all new. So are you still you? Or are you a copy of a copy? A memory of a memory? And what about identity beyond the body? What about consciousness? If we copied your mind, your thoughts, your voice, your memories into a machine, would it still be you? What if the copy couldn't tell the difference? Philosophers have wrestled with this for centuries. It's not just about objects, it's about essence, about whether identity is in the parts or the pattern. Is a thing still itself? If all the pieces change, but the pattern stays the same, what makes something what it is? We like to think of identity as fixed, but the Ship of Theseus shows us that identity might be fluid. A story we tell ourselves to hold on to something that is always slipping through our hands. And if identity is a story, then who writes it? Who decides when something has changed too much? Where is the line between transformation and replacement? Maybe there is no line. Maybe the question doesn't have an answer. Maybe that's what makes it a paradox. Because here's the truth. We are always changing, piece by piece, moment by moment. Memories fade, bodies age, thoughts evolve, and yet, we still feel like ourselves. So maybe the answer is this. The Ship of Theseus is still the Ship of Theseus, because we say it is. Because identity isn't found in the wood, or the steel, or the flesh. It's found in the belief, in the continuity, in the illusion that something has stayed the same, even when everything has changed. That illusion is what keeps us sane. It's what makes you, even if, piece by piece, you've become someone else entirely. Let's say you invent a time machine, a perfect one, no errors, no glitches. You can go back as far as you want, anywhere in history. So you do something unthinkable. You go back in time to before your grandfather had children, before your father was born, before you existed, and you kill him. Now here's the question. If your grandfather dies before your parent is born, then you're never born. But if you're never born, then who went back in time to kill him? That's the paradox. It's called the grandfather paradox. And it's one of the most disturbing thought experiments in the history of time travel. Because it breaks causality. The rule that cause must come before effect. That actions lead to consequences. That time moves in one direction. But in this story, the cause erases its own effect, and the effect erases its own cause. A perfect loop, a perfect contradiction. Let's think this through. You kill your grandfather. You're never born. You never build a time machine. You never go back. So your grandfather lives. So you're born. So you go back and kill him again. It never ends. And it never begins. It's a loop that destroys itself. So what's really happening here? Some physicists think this paradox proves time travel is impossible. That you can't go back and change the past. That the universe simply won't allow it. Others believe in something called the Novikov self-consistency principle. It says you can time travel, but you can't change the past in any way that creates a paradox. Something will always stop you. Maybe the gun jams. Maybe you change your mind. Maybe the universe rewrites the event so nothing breaks. But others Think bigger. What if killing your grandfather creates a new timeline? Branching universe. One where you never existed, but the original you still does. In another timeline. This is called the many worlds interpretation, where every decision, every possibility, splits reality into infinite versions. So in one world you're born, in another, you never were. But here's the most terrifying part. The grandfather paradox isn't just about time travel. It's about choice, about free will, about whether your actions can ever truly change anything, or if the future is already written. Because if changing the past is impossible, then maybe everything is. Maybe we're just watching a movie that's already finished, believing we're writing it as we go. And if changing the past is possible, then cause and effect shatter, and nothing means anything anymore. That's the paradox. Not just a logical puzzle, but a mirror. One that reflects back your deepest assumptions about time, identity, and fate. Would you go back? Would you pull the trigger? Could you live with the answer? Or worse, with the loop? Because once you understand the grandfather paradox, you can't unknow it. Time unravels, logic dissolves, and the past is no longer safe. Let's dive into a time travel paradox. This one is different. It doesn't just break time, it creates it. Imagine you receive a letter from the future. It's addressed to you. You open it up. Inside, there's a book. The book is titled, How to Write a Bestseller. You read it, and the contents are incredible. It's a guide, a step-by-step formula for writing the perfect book. So you take the book's advice, you write your book, and it becomes a bestseller. The book that changes everything. It inspires millions. But here's the twist. The book you wrote, it was the same book you got from the future. You wrote it by following the advice in the book that you received from the future. And the cycle repeats. So where did the book come from? This is the bootstrap paradox. A paradox that questions the origin of knowledge, objects, and even time itself. Because in this scenario, the book never really had an original author. You received it from the future, but the future only exists because you sent it back. And the book that inspired you, it's just looping through time, forever. What happens when the past and the future mix? What happens when something exists without ever truly being created? Does it even make sense to ask where it came from? Or is the answer lost in the loop? The bootstrap paradox challenges everything we know about cause and effect, about beginnings and endings. Because the book you wrote and the book you read can't exist without each other. It's a closed loop, a time travel puzzle with no point of origin, a paradox where causality itself disappears. So, does time travel mean we can create anything out of nothing? Does it mean knowledge can travel backward? Can we truly bootstrap something into existence? Or are we all just following a script written long before us? In a universe where time isn't linear, where past and future exist simultaneously, what does creation even mean? You can't give someone something they never gave you. And yet, that's exactly what the bootstrap paradox demands. It's a paradox that doesn't just confuse time, it confuses reality. Because what's real if an object, an idea, or a person can exist without an origin? If everything you know is just a loop that's gone on forever? Is there such a thing as true creativity if everything you create already exists? Or are we all just recreating the past? And if you could step out of the loop, would you even